So I am just going to ask you one thing about reading. You've probably guessed from behind. I'm a big reader. I always have been. And I love to hear these innovation team leaders as to what they're reading and what book would you recommend somebody to read?
Yeah. So I read a lot of history and political science. That's kind of where but I need to point to a book, called Analytics at Work. Tom Davenport, Jeannie Harris. Tom is I just love Tom. He's a prolific writer. He's now writing a lot about AI. But his book, I can point to his book that I read in 2008 as pivoting us to data.
Yeah.
We got rid of our custom development, and I just clearly recognized, and we then went on this unknown journey to building capabilities. And I just saw anything written by Tom. That's where my head would go. So
it was pivotal, right? I mean, I've heard you talk about that book before, so I've actually got it in my notes. In here I've got Tom Davenport. About data was
Yep.
what I knew you'd come up with.
Yes.
Because I've seen you talk about it. So,
the other thing, James, I've turned people onto that book, and it's transformed their journey. So it's like, that's an example of a book that just has legs, and continues to resonate with people. So,
what it's probably very difficult to paraphrase it down to one sort of thing that you really took from it. What did Tom describe to you in that book that really made you think, right, actually in 2008, which is a lot of the real estate industry still have no freaking idea about data, what it is, where they're getting it from, how structured it is, how they store it. So, we're going back 15 years. What was it about Tom's book then that made you go, that's the direction that I have to take BXP in?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned that I was Kaizen back in the early 90s. So data, like TQM, is just like how you measure everything you do. So you get to this point in your journey, and this book comes along, and it talks about he has this great Venn diagram inside the book that talks about the overlapping of where data sat in the company. Across the fabric of the company, and that just so resonated with me on where and we already had a culture of data, like the discipline or our attention to, as a public company, to our forecasting, but how we took that and just took it to another level, and then went on these other chapters with that data, those data capabilities that we developed. So,
yeah, for me, when I ask you about the biggest frustration in your innovation journey, for me, in all of the years that I've been doing all of this, the biggest frustration for me is the complete lack of understanding around what data means. And so that's a very apt recommendation.